Okay, it is the appointed hour, and I will call to order the meeting, April 24th meeting of the Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority. Item 2 is items from the chairman, and I don't have anything at this time. Item 3 is minutes from the March 27th meeting. Do we have any changes or corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 4 is a consent docket. We have the oil and gas revenue report and the Oklahoma River Corridor events update. Do we have any questions on either one of those?
Move the consent docket.
Second.
Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item 5 is the primary agenda. Item A is to receive the Oklahoma River maintenance projects update.
Good afternoon. Jim Llewellyn, Oklahoma City Public Works Department. We're anticipating award on MC 609, which is the dredging contract for the sedimentation basin at the west end of the river, June 19th this year. We've currently budgeted $1.5 million for dredging in that area. We're also getting ready to advertise DM 0409, which is channel cleaning and maintenance. That's for the mowing contract for the portion of the river east of the Eastern Dam. We anticipate awarding that contract July 3rd. Current contract runs out June 30th, so we'll have that in place in time. As far as maintenance and repairs on the dam, we've had to replace a hydraulic sensor on the Brum Dam. That's really the only activity we've had in the last 2 months. SCADA, they're still in the process of updating the SCADA system for the dam controls. It'll provide a redundant backup system, and as part of it, it'll have an automatic switch to switch to the new system if the old one fails. They've completed the installation of the cameras at the new maintenance facility, and they've completed the preventive maintenance at the Brum boat lock and the May boat lock for the new river season. As far as cleaning debris out of the river, they've removed approximately 1.2 tons of debris in the last 2 months. Debris quantities have been down just basically because we haven't had any rainfall to wash the debris into the river. Most of what they picked up has just been floatables, bottles, styrofoam cups, and things like that. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Jim, who does the area? I don't know whether it's parks or whether we do it, the area right where the river and the canal come together, underneath, right near
That Zone G area?
Centennial Sculpture.
That's maintained by Parks.
Is that maintained by Parks?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to receive the report.
So moved.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to recognize our new mayor. David Holt has asked for a minute to speak. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, I've been trying to make a point as I can to make it around to all the trusts, or at least the ones that I can, and just say hi and thank you so much for your service. And in the case of this one, I think there's still a whole lot of potential for the Oklahoma River, and I'm very excited to work with you to do whatever we can to advance that potential. And I've already had some conversations with Chairman Mars, and we'll continue to have those. And obviously, if there's ever anything I can do, I know we'll be in touch. And again, I know quite a few of you are volunteers, and I always want to take the opportunity to thank you for your time that you give to this effort. So that's all. I just wanted to say hi.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, item B is to receive the quarterly Oklahoma River Cruisers update. Jeannie?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, trustees. Well, the ferry service resumed on Friday, April 6th, with service Friday through Sunday. Beginning in May, days will be extended to Wednesday through Sunday, as we've done in prior years, reserving Monday and Tuesday for maintenance activities. The schedule starts, as you see on your screen, the first boat leaves at 11:40. The final trip from Meridian starts at 5:25. Evening ferry service had been showing some declining numbers, so we're replacing that with some new specialty cruises, which currently are already beginning to sell for us. The first is the new river tour. Our office staff, the HMS Ferries office staff, reported that despite the fact that on regular ferry service, the passengers receive information about development on the Oklahoma River and history, they consistently ask, well, is there a river tour? Well, now there is. Now there's a river tour. It's in the evenings. It starts at 6 o'clock, I believe. It's a fully narrated tour. You can buy tickets online, or you can just show up at the Regatta Park ticket booth and buy tickets there. Immediately following that is a cocktail cruise, which replaces the Sunset Cruise. What we discovered on the Sunset Cruise was the expense we went to for the appetizers. The real appreciation is for the views on the river and, of course, the cash bar. So we're able to reduce the ticket price by not having to offer those expensive hors d'oeuvres. So those start in June. The first river tours start Saturdays in May, and then both activities are Fridays and Saturdays, June through September. This is a list of just a few of the things, well, actually, it's most of the things that are discussed on the river tour. The HMS staff prepared multiple packets of information for the captains that will be operating these tours. It even includes your position on the river where you would discuss each of these items so that they're not talking about something they've already passed or something that's coming up. They can actually hit all of these things at the appropriate time during the river tour. We're very excited to be able to offer this much information rather than just the occasional comment here and there. The other specialty cruises we have Mother's Day. In the past 2 years, I believe, we've just done it on ferry service. We're going back to a dessert cruise with mimosas and a cash bar. This was a popular event several years ago when we cut back on specialty cruises. That was one of the ones we cut back on. We're bringing this one back in. There'll be 2 events that day, both in the afternoon, so you can have lunch with Mom and then take her on a nice dessert cruise. Then we have Father's Day, a special cruise for that as well. And, of course, Haunt the River in October, which is probably the most popular specialty cruise that we offer. Okay, on March 13th, a tabletop exercise on emergency response involving Oklahoma River cruises was held. In attendance were the Oklahoma City Police, Fire, Public Works River Maintenance, Stormwater Quality Departments, and EMSA. The exercise was coordinated by Oklahoma City Emergency Management and facilitated by Jerry Loitka. Jerry is an HMS Ferries captain. He's a retired Midwest City Fire Marshal, and he works for the Oklahoma County Emergency Management. The exercise was requested by HMS Oklahoma as part of their Safety Management System program. It was successful in improving awareness of the complexities of emergency operations on the river. One of the things that fire in particular learned was that there's almost 3 feet elevation between the deck and the water line. So just pulling up a Zodiac and loading people wasn't quite as simple as they thought it would be. There will be, yes, one of the fire chiefs there actually had never heard of this, but we won't go there. There will be a follow-up cruise with police, fire, EMSA, any of the other interested parties, so they can actually be on board and see what's involved and what sort of facilities and emergency equipment we have on hand to assist. For marketing, we are partnered once again with Frontier Country, which operates the OKTourism.com website. These are some of the things that we are promoting on social media. Social media was such a wonderful, successful, and low-cost marketing option for us that we've expanded. Embark has now a somewhat larger staff for marketing. So on our first day of service, one of their staff actually did a live video on Facebook for our opening cruise, and we're looking forward to more of those opportunities as the season progresses. These are some examples of some of the posts that we put on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, they got very favorable responses. This promotes our bike and ride cruises where people can bring their bicycles on board. That's a fun
Jenny, I
thing to
think that's
do.
a really great idea. Do we have people taking advantage of it?
It's not common. But we started it about 4 years ago, and we actually did it with segways the first year.
Wow.
People bring segways on board, and then they would go through the wetlands and then back to where they started. Bike and ride, we can take up to 4 bikes, which discourages larger groups, but we do occasionally get 2 or 3 people. We've even done some flat tire rescues on the river cruiser where they put their bike on because their bike is damaged and they can't continue.
I think it's just a great idea.
And let's see, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Jeannie? Okay. Thank you, Jeannie. I need a motion to receive that report.
Second.
Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item C is to receive a presentation on the master plan for improvements to the north side of the Oklahoma River between Portland and Harvey, pursuant to an MOU between the River Trust and the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma City Community Foundation. Doug?
Good afternoon, trustees, chairman. Doug Cupper, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. I'm going to turn it over to our landscape architect that actually worked through the plan. I just wanted to set it up and remind everybody that the Community Foundation came forward and offered to do a massive improvement along the north shore of the river from basically the southern end of Scissortail Park all the way out to Portland. So staff worked very hard on creating the design concepts that we are going to present to you here in a minute. We've worked with Brian to make sure that we're all in sync as it relates to the plan, and I'm excited about the opportunity that this might give us as it relates to improving the north side of the river. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brandon.
Good afternoon, Brandon Boyson with Parks. Good to be here. Can you set that up to where it's on the full screen instead of just the PDF? That way it'll change for me. On the view, full screen. Yeah, full screen mode. There we go. All right. Again, we had an opportunity to come up from the Community Foundation, so just kind of real quickly walk through kind of a few things here to kind of get everybody caught back up to speed on kind of the river, the way it is now, things that have happened, kind of where it got left off, and some things of that nature, and kind of set the stage for the master plan that we're looking at to further enhance or improve the landscape elements and some other amenities along the river. The river is existing. When it was originally rechannelized and the trail was put in, I-40 was in a different location. And so there's some things that have changed since the original plan was put into place. A lot of the landscape was never actually installed per the original plan. And so there's a lot of room for some improvement there. There's been some continuation of the trail systems off to the west. We've also got the Will Rogers Trail that recently opened that kind of intersects about midway, and then the future connection on the other end all the way down by Scissortail Park. Again, right now, some of the main connections that that are already existing, trying to really build on and play off of, is we've got the West River Trail that connects. If you cross to the south side of the river and then continue on west there at Portland where the North Trail ends, and we've got the Will Rogers Trail there at May where they just put in a new parking lot, kind of a trailhead, some seating amenities and some things like that that we're going to try to build on and improve on there. And we've got the large areas there at Wheeler Park, multiple parking facilities, multiple points of connection, all the way down through the north side of Wiley Post and all the way down to Boathouse or Brigada Park. So just kind of a real quick refresh on the existing landscape conditions is from the east side of Western. I know, as Doug mentioned, we were looking at all the way from the south end of where the Scissortail would tie in all the way to the west. So as we got to looking at this, we noticed and made note that the existing landscape east of Western from the Wheeler Park all the way down to the Boathouse District, all the way down that way, the landscape is already pretty well in, and so there's more opportunity to the west. And so we're going to, as we look through this, you'll notice we focus most of our efforts going to the west. And so from Western to Portland is kind of our main focus area as far as our landscape improvements. Going to the west, there's not very much trees of any sort. The ones that are there are fairly small, just kind of had a little bit of a rough time. There is irrigation and stuff available. We're looking at what it's going to take to repair some of that to get that up and going for the new plants. That way we can make sure that what we put in is maintainable. It's able to establish and has a longevity to it. And there's a lot of open landscapes, there's turf areas that we're providing a nice opportunity to enhance on. So just a couple real quick pictures kind of as a refresher to what's out there, some of the existing landscape. You notice the very top left picture is the existing landscape that was put in and has done really well there in Wheeler Park going back to the east. And the rest of it is kind of some quick snapshots along the river back to the west. There's large open spaces, lonely trees that are struggling, kind of being beat down. And so with the Community Foundation approaching and offering this, to put this increased planting in there, looking at roughly around 1,000 trees. Of course, that's a round number, kind of we use what makes sense and what works well with the foundation. And then they're also doing that with the original plant palette in mind, and then also further adjusting as needed based on what didn't survive that was put in the first time versus some things that are available now that are similar. They're also looking at providing some additional seating amenities. We look at a couple of places that we can do those that are effective and efficient and provide a good opportunity for use, as well as we got to looking in this, adding some wildflower areas to help increase the pollinators and also provide another level of interest along this portion of the trail. And then also with the Parks Department working in partnership with this, as the parks, we were looking at opportunities where we can add some additional amenities, looking at a couple of places where we're going to investigate putting in some restroom facilities to be able to, because right now there's not really much out there. And so once you get out there, you're kind of in no man's land. So we're trying to provide some places intermediate that, provide a little bit of relief. And so in the process of doing that, also add a little bit of extra, enhancement to those areas and a few key spots that are in addition to the rest of the trail. Kind of set those apart just a little bit, provide a renewed interest. And then kind of a big thing that's coming out of this is using this as a learning tool for improving some of the native selection of plants. And we'll see that here in a second. And we'll do this in such a way that we can kind of learn as we go. That way we can adapt, we can put in what's going to work. And so just kind of a real quick overview of some of the master plan goals that we're looking at to achieve here is, recapitalizing on some of the open space that is there, using that to become an amenity instead of it just being kind of a vast open space. Increase the tree canopy, okay, bring it back to more of a riverine setting versus just a large mode urban corridor, okay, kind of bring that interest back into the heart of the city. Including some educational elements in the process of doing this. There's a lot of opportunity to bring the public, interaction with the landscape and the native elements into that interaction there, so we can use that as an education tool as well. And then obviously, some benches, some shelters, and kind of look at what we're thinking on the shelters and how we're kind of maximizing on the existing conditions. And then, kind of secondary in the process, we looked at some additional places where in the future we can add connection points to help with connectivity and movement to and from the trail. That way, once you get on the trail, you're not stuck there for an extended period of time. You have opportunities to get on and off as it's appropriate. Okay, and so just kind of a real quick kind of look at the master plan in concept, in graphical concept, is, we have all these massing of trees. If somebody's having problems reading it on the screen, if it doesn't show well, I do have hard copies as a backup. But massing of trees, bringing again that riverine type corridor in the area we are, also maximizing on the mindset of the cross timbers, where we have the interaction between the tree canopy and the native prairies. Now, since this is the portion of the corridor that does get closer and brings into downtown, we're not just putting in, or not looking at the idea of putting in just a blended wild prairie. Okay, that's kind of more to the western river trails and things of that nature, where it's just more completely natural. We're looking at using the native plants in a more of a sculpted fashion, and so it provides this transition from, the western part of the river trail and the native and the wild areas into the more heavily used active areas, such as the Wheeler Park and the Boathouse District and the more uses closely associated with the downtown. So this kind of helps provide a transition area. On this particular slide, I want to point out, one of the key areas that we're looking at is as, for lack of a better term, I've kind of dubbed it the lost circle, the circular portion of the trail that nobody really knows it's really there. It's kind of had, I'm sure, a design intent to it, and it just never really was able to be fulfilled. And so this is going to be one of our areas that we are going to investigate and to use as a demo or as a trial plot for our natives, and using this as a easily blocked off area so we can use this to as a trial to test and make sure that our methods and our practices for the maintenance, the install, the plant selection is going to be to what we need it to. And this gives us time to adapt and to modify it to make sure it's going to work when we start implementing down the rest of the river trail. And so this can also be a very inclusive type, educated type session or section of the trail to where you're not on the main trail, you're not going to be interfering with people that are just wanting to move with the biking or the running. They can actually pull off. There'll be some signage and some other key elements along those lines. And so it provides a nice opportunity to really blend the tree canopy next to the river with some more of the highland type prairies on the upper side of that, the slope and the mound that's kind of there in the middle of that circle area. And so we kind of move on over to the left side of your slide there. You notice the nice orange asterisk there. That's the trailhead for the Will Rogers Trail. It's one of the areas we're looking at to provide restroom amenities. We've already got infrastructure and things that are close, and so it's a fairly feasible opportunity to pursue. And so we've already got, trailhead is a nice junction between different trails and the point of access. Also, we can see the continuation that the tree canopy and that riverine setting with the grasses that meander and weave. And so, again, with that sculpted fashion, the sculpted grasses, it's not just a wild, unkept prairie, but it's a sculpted, moving landscape, moving within the plants themselves when the wind blows, as well as the type of plants as they're in swaths and patterns that kind of move along as the river would move. Again, the selection and the variety starts to diminish. We go to more a one or two type plant selection as we get closer to the change in use. And so again, we provide that transition as we get closer to the front door or the downtown part of the city. And so it helps to kind of set that stage that we're transitioning from more of the trails into more of the park and the community settings. And then also here on the far right side, you've got Wheeler Park, which is kind of where we've ended up limiting ourselves as far as what areas need the most improvement. But the other place we're looking at putting in a restroom and some other added amenities there because we already have parking, we have other infrastructure. It makes it a feasible, functional area. So just to kind of set the stage and kind of get the mindset going for the feel, the textures, the colors of the landscape as far as the prairies and things that we're looking at putting in is doing, selected single varieties of patterns of the grasses, the landscape, the textures, the colors. Provide that experience as the user is running or biking or walking through that trail, the landscape moving around them with color, with texture, the wind as it blows. So here's just a sample selection of some of the grasses that may be suited for this area. We're still fine-tuning that as we go through and we get reports and soils reports things in to make sure that what we put in is going to be appropriate, as well as the pollinators influence, the wildflowers, using the natives to bring some color to it, not just the color of the grasses themselves, but the more vibrant color that comes and goes with the blooming seasons. And so we'll have those pockets and those swaths of those that move through the area as well. And so, again, the educational element, so as we do this, the signage will be very important to inform everyone around that's using this trail that what's going on and why it is and how it's used. That way, if they want to stop for a break in the middle of the trail, they have an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of reading and learning in the process, as well as a destination with the added trailheads from the Will Rogers that kind of takes that last segment into a little bit more usable place there. And so just kind of a rough idea of where we're thinking with timeline at this point. I know the Community Foundation is really kind of wanting to march toward that. The spring as being their anniversary time, and so that's kind of when they're wanting to, for lack of a better term, unveil this. And so the plantings will start this fall through the winter. as it takes time to plant that many trees, and keep moving forward, and then this will just kind of continue to develop and evolve as this plan gets put into place. And so as we, especially with the native portions of it, as we learn as we go, that way we can kind of continue to evolve this to make sure what we're putting in is going to work, it's going to be maintainable. And we've worked and had conversations within our own department of the park or the management and kind of making sure that we're on board with what they can maintain, what they're interested in maintaining and able to do with current equipment and infrastructure, and kind of limiting the maintenance in the long term. So it's kind of a quick cursory go through. Do we have any questions? I'll just kind of open it up. If any questions I can answer for you.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like a wonderful project. My question is irrigation. You mentioned about rehabbing the irrigation plant. That's
Yes.
an awful lot of land. What do you contemplate there as far as irrigating? I remember, I've been here 40 years, and I remember when the tree bank planted all the trees up the Broadway extension, I think 99% of which died.
Right. Okay, very good question. The irrigation, the way that's out there now is there are pumps along the river that were put in with the original project, and the one to the furthest west has been mothballed for a period of time, so that's the one we're really looking at what it's going to take to get that one back up and going. It's still functional. It's just a matter of what maintenance is needed to repair it. The whole river, for the most part, already has irrigation in place, and so it's just a matter of adding equipment for these trees, and the method we're looking at for these trees is a drip system that goes on the trees themselves. And so that way we can focus the water on them until they get established, and the more they get established, we can back that off. And that way they're not dependent on it. They start developing a good, healthy root system on their own. And so, it's a ground pump that pumps from the groundwater next to the river. And so that's already in place, and that's already established. And so we're just tying on to that and revitalizing that to make it usable.
Well, I'm sure, Brian, you'll take care of that, right?
This has been an incredible cooperative arrangement. Doug, Brandon, all of us. We've had numerous meetings. We've been in touch with John Coopervidge at Tinker, who's been very, 40 years of working with native grasses. We've been with Johnson Seed. And then with Crystal Lake, I don't know if you know, but all the trees we've planted, we've had tremendous success. It is a drip irrigation. They've been out there seeing about replicating what we've already got going. So a lot of it is lessons learned and making sure we look. And we're looking for that 100% success that we want on all those OCCF projects. So we're not looking at a 50% success. We're looking at that same level of success on this project.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to recognize Nancy Anthony, who's here, the executive director, I think is correct, of the Oklahoma City Community Foundation. We're so grateful, Nancy, for the support.
We very much appreciate it. I think it's going to be an exciting part. I think the educational part of it is going to be really important so that people don't walk along there and say, why aren't they mowing all that stuff out there?
Yes, sir.
You got to tell them what it is and why we're not mowing it. So,
if you look back at the parks plan we did a number of years ago with the city, and we came up with it, this hit so many of them. We were dinged really hard for the tremendous amount of mowing. We were mowing 83%, and the goal is not to mow more than 60%. So this gives us a chance to go back in. What was the things in the statistical survey that everybody wanted? Places to walk and shade. So this hits a whole lot. We've been kind of taking this off. This is a lot larger project, and now working back with Brandon and Doug and all, I think we're going to do it. I think the time is right. I've always said, let the dust settle and then come back in and really look, and this is probably the most ideal time to do it with the Will Rogers Trail and the Scissortail Trail, everything coming together. This is kind of the last frontier, and we'll be able to really activate it to the next level.
any other? I need a motion to receive this presentation.
So moved.
Ask your vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
And Nancy, thanks again, you and the Community Foundation. We really appreciate it. Item D is a resolution approving the plan you just saw and implementing that plan.
Move approval.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item E is to receive a revocable permit with Scissortail Community Development for the 2018 OKC Cinco de Mayo Festival, May the 6th in Wiley Post Park. Any questions on this?
We talked about it this morning at council. It sounds like a really great event, so I would move approval.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Okay, item F is a resolution ratifying the actions of the Park and Recreation Director and approving an administrative revocable for Arc Pyrotechnics for a display in the Boathouse District that's already happened. This is an after-the-fact ratifying an action. We've got some information we're going to give you. I will remind you that we had this issue last year and sent a letter saying we didn't want to do it again and needed to get it done ahead of time. But for reasons I think will be explained, we decided to do it. So, Dennis, you want to?
Sure. Let me take a couple of minutes to explain. And if you haven't read the entire resolution, we understand it's not often that you get a 3-page resolution from the park staff, especially one of 27 whereases. However, staff thought it was important that you understand all the circumstances surrounding this. As Chairman Mars said last fall, you approved, I think for the second time, retroactively a revocable permit for a fireworks display that had gone on prior to that. And it was clear that the trustees were not excited about doing that again. However, early on the morning of April the 7th, I got a call from the Parks Director, and he explained to me that he had been contacted by a representative of Women of the South, a nonprofit agency who that evening was having their fundraising gala down at the Boathouse District, and they had been told that they couldn't have their fireworks display because of some permitting issues. And it was the same firework supplier that we had dealt with before, and he had received letters from staff explaining why and the importance of getting permits, and that we didn't want to see this happen again. And so here we were again, and Mr. Copper asked me, boss, what do you want to do? And so I said, well, I don't think that we should penalize the fundraiser that's going on that evening, and I told him to go ahead and issue the permit. So that's what you have on your agenda today, is to, again, retroactively approve the permit. Since that time, staff has been in contact with the owner of the fireworks company. In fact, Mr. Birch had a meeting with their representative this morning and again explained to them the importance of getting permits and how uncomfortable and unnecessary this is to have to issue a permit retroactively.
Dennis, I want to be really clear that it wasn't the Boathouse Foundation that didn't do this right. It was the company that didn't do it correctly. And
right.
So we know there's some things that we need to work out between ourselves and the Boathouse District Foundation, but this was not their doing either.
And I'll be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. There is, on advice of the Municipal Counselor's Office, I've been asked to suggest to you to change some language in the 9th whereas on the first page, about 2/3 of the way down, where it says at the end of that first line, given to him by Okra trustees, that you change Okra trustees to the general manager. Is that accurate? Okay.
Do you need a motion to approve the change? Okay, I would make a motion that we amend the whereas, number 9.
Okay, this is a motion to change the language in the resolution. Cast your vote. It passed unanimously. Now a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously.
On behalf of Women of the South, thank you very much. We truly appreciate it.
I would also say I attended the event, and it was a wonderful event for a good cause, and I'm glad they got to have the fireworks.
And, I mean, the fireworks are so spectacular, every place they are along the river. If we can work this out with the fireworks provider, you know, it really adds so much to the quality of events down there. So we want to encourage it, but we need them to do it timely.
I don't think any of us
Correctly.
don't think the fireworks are not a nice deal. We just would like to get his attention on when he has to get his permit. Okay.
And clean it up appropriately. Right? We have two sides, get a permit and then clean it up correctly.
Okay, item G is the operating budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. This was introduced last month, and we're set to adopt it. I will let you know that there's a change on the one you have this month. It's just a matter of moving some items, the dollar amount to a different line, where it's specifically the money from the community foundation that we get. Didn't change the dollar amounts at the finals, expenses and revenues and all of that. It's just a clerical change on the lines for it. So, have any questions on it? Motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Second.
Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Okay. Item 6 is the claims docket. We have one claim on there. Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 7 is additional items, comments by staff. Doug, anything besides your written report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick one. Otherwise, I'd recommend you receive our report. Just want to point out that the Safari McDoulet Memorial site at Crystal Lake is coming to fruition, and we will be having the dedication very soon out there. So just want to remind everybody, hopefully you have it on your calendar. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Doug? Motion to receive his report? Second. Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Comments by trustees?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one comment I'd like to make. In citizens to be heard at council this morning, a gentleman came before us who was concerned. He actually is in a wheelchair, and he was on the trails over the weekend and indicated that there were trucks on the trail, which he considered to be a hazard. And he didn't indicate to us whether they were city vehicles or private vehicles. I'm not sure exactly what the level of concern or how they got there was.
I got the impression they weren't city vehicles and that they were using the road to get to a work site. And
That's
I don't know
what it
what that
sounded
means.
like.
But it was on the north side, and so we wanted to report it to you so someone could look into this and make sure we don't have an accident out there.
I'm going to look into it. It very well could have been Public Works employees, and I'll find that out. And I was talking with the chairman earlier before the meeting about it. If it wasn't city vehicle, if we can confirm that it was not, I'm not quite sure what we do about that. It's a wide open area, and you can get access to those trails with a vehicle almost.
Well, he acted like that they were using the truck to go to an active work site, using the road as the trail as a shortcut.
And hopefully that's what it was, and if it is, then we can address that.
Any other comments from trustees? Any citizens wanting to speak? Hey, Mike. Normally I call on you and you look at me like, oh, well, what am I going to say?
Well, I always have something to say, but I do have something with my Canop here with the Boathouse Foundation. Today our press release is being issued today from the U.S. Olympic Committee that is announcing that Oklahoma City has been selected as one of 3 sites in the country for what they're calling the next Olympic Hopeful event, which is going to be a new initiative from the U.S. Olympic Committee to identify the next generation of athletes, not just for rowing or canoe kayak, but there's a select number of sports, including bobsled, so you might think about that. But they really look at us as a key partner in the Olympic movement as an Olympic training site and selected us among everywhere else to be a place to launch this major new initiative that will get a lot of media attention and ultimately hopefully lead to athletes that get to the Olympics from Oklahoma City. So we're going to be doing an outreach effort to our schools, colleges, and anyone else who wants to give it a try. It'll be on May 17th in conjunction with our Whitewater Festival. Be open to anyone. There's a series of 5 different tests that they will do, and we'll go from there. So I think it'll be very exciting, and that release is out today. Secondly, I would announce that the Red Bull World Championship pump track qualifier is also that same day, and that is growing significantly. We're going to have people from all over the country at our bike park, which is something we never expected a year ago would happen, and they will qualify for the World Championship in Switzerland going on. And then the third thing at that same event is another new thing, and that is called Boater Cross. Currently, our staff is building a ramp that will be connected to the Whitewater course, and essentially, if you've watched, again, the Winter Olympics and snowboard cross, where snowboarders go in and they race down a path, similar concept, except in kayaks, and they actually fall off a bridge and literally go in and race to the bottom. So very new event and kind of an extreme sports weekend, but we'll get a lot of media attention, people from around the country. So mark your calendar, May 17th. We'll get you passes, but it should be an exciting time. So thank you.
I will say closer to home, for me anyway, I don't know if you saw it on the news, but they hosted some training recently between the state and the firefighters on swiftwater rescue from a helicopter. And I understand that went very well, was well received.
Thank you for bringing that up. I did mention the high water conference with the helicopter rescues the first day, and then for that weekend, the snow weekend, we had first responders in the water from all over the country and Canada training, and it went very well, very great reviews. It'll grow. We'll have more next year, but we have the second part of the helicopter rescue happening in May. The first one, they did simulated rescues from 2 helicopters in the bottom pool. The next step will be to do it in moving water, which will be real interesting in May. So it's quite a sight to see. We'll send the word.
I'm sure they're looking for volunteers.
Yeah.
Any of you would like to get in on that?
Chairman, if I could also say, Mike, at council today, we accepted a small grant, but about $4,000 from Homeland Security to provide additional training for firefighters in Swiftwater, and that will also be happening at the boathouse.
Any other citizens to be heard? We are adjourned.